I'm Roy Lee Lindsay with the North Carolina Pork Council, and I want everyone to remember, bacon makes everything better.
Welcome into the fifth quarter here on the North Carolina Sports Network. I'm Mike Waddell, joined as always by the coach, Jim Collins, 1996 national champion, and also 2019 Alliance of American Football world champion of spring football. How are you, Coach? Have you had a great weekend playing golf and watching football?
Fabulous weekend. Went to the Flotilla in Wrightsville Beach last night, and was hosted at a great function over there. First time there, great fireworks show, and watching the boats go down the Intercoastal. So it's been a great weekend. Great Thanksgiving weekend. My daughter and granddaughter were here, so it was absolutely great.
You know, talking about college football and the weekend that was, you mentioned it last week. North Carolina, NC State, Duke, and Wake Forest, all four playing at the same time. And it got me thinking, back when my college advisor, Herb Appenzeller, was playing for P. Head Walker at Wake Forest was just north of Raleigh. So you literally had NC State, Duke, Wake, and Carolina all in the triangle. Right. Neither one of us were active during those years. We don't remember those times like we would know football today. But can you imagine what it would have been like to have all four of the Big Four in today's world that close together geographically? That would be a mind blower.
No, it really would. It would be an exciting thing. It would be great for college football and just college sports in general. But I thought it was a great fallback to the way things used to be, and that the what I'm going to use this term, the Big Four were all playing each other on the last weekend of the college football season, of the regular season. So I thought it was great for North Carolina college football.
Well, North Carolina entertained North Carolina State on Saturday afternoon. An ACC network audience tuned in to watch the Wolfpack try to get to bowl eligibility, and the Tar Heels looked to send out Mack Brown on his shield with a victory. Unfortunately, it did not work out for the venerable 16-year head coach of the Tar Heels as NC State scores late, wins this game 35-30. The big play of the game, I went back and watched it today. It was hard to believe that Noah Rogers in double coverage came down with that 44-yard bomb from C.J. Bailey. And before we get to that play, I got to ask you, did you see C.J. Bailey coming through and becoming the best quarterback in the state of North Carolina here in 2024? That was not on my bingo card.
Well, I don't think any of us expected him to be playing because of the guy that they signed, McCall, and then the injury to him, and he got put into the heat of things very quickly. But you can see his progression and how he's grown all the way through the season. You know, Kurt Roper is who's a quarterback coach at NC State, is a good friend of mine. We worked together at Duke University, and Kurt's a hell of a good football coach, and does not surprise me that CJ made progress because he's well coached, and he has shown that progress throughout, and made plays at the end of the game with his feet and with his arm to help them come out on top.
NC State finishes the regular season at 6-6. They'll go on to a bowl game. North Carolina finishes the season at 6-6 and likely saw the last time on that Kenan Stadium turf, Omarion Hampton, that 47-yard shovel pass that he took. They call it a pass. It was more or less a pitch. But, man, what a player Omarion Hampton has been for North Carolina, really bringing back some of those great memories of running backs, tailbacks past for the Tar Heels.
No doubt, Mike, and he is such a humble guy that, I mean, you're talking about almost 1,700 yards rushing this year, and I heard this stat. He actually had 1,700 yards in 12 games. In 12 games now with all his carries, and I don't remember how many times he's carried the football, he's only lost 40 yards for the season. So he had 1,660 yards, actually had 1,700 and had 40 yards of negative plays. That's amazing now. Absolutely amazing what he did. And he is a humble, great player and good person. You hate to say this, but they almost scored a little bit too quick at the end of the game. But you got to go stop somebody at some point. And the Carolina offense, and I thought Criswell played well in the second half and did a lot of good things to get them in position to win the football game.
We're going to talk about all of the other stuff going on in Chapel Hill a little bit later, but I will ask you now for NC State. That is now not one, not two, not three, but 4 wins in a row over the Tar Heels of North Carolina. For NC State's fandom, this is their alpha, their omega, the game that they look to more than anything else. And Dave Doran comes out and says it. And they play like it means that much to them. I know it means that much to a lot of people at Carolina, but it just doesn't have the same resonance with the fan base. David Glenn and I were out with the Old North State tailgate talking to fans in the parking lots before the game. We asked them, and we'll have this content coming up in the next week on NorthCarolinaSportsNetwork.com. But most everybody is saying now that Duke is North Carolina's arch rival in football. And no offense to the Duke football program, but NC State, North Carolina was always something that really had resonance, and it seems like that's just faded through the years. Why do you think that is?
I'm going to burst some bubbles for some fans at this point in time that want to believe that the North Carolina program and Coach Brown did not put the emphasis on the North Carolina State game that he put on the Duke game. Well, that's a bunch of bull. I sat in those meeting rooms for 2 years as an analyst there. I know what was said. I know the attitude about playing rivalry games, and that game was just as serious as any other game that, against an in-state rival. I don't know how when you start talking about Wake and Duke and NC State, well, hell, they're all the same, man. You know, they're all big rivals. You can say whatever you want to that one means more than the other. No, they're all important. You don't want to lose to any of them. It's just like when I was at the University of Florida. You know, Coach Spurrier came out one time and said that we would rather win the Southeastern Conference Championship, which was played after the Florida State game, than beat Florida State. Well, the fans got all up in the air and said we weren't trying to win against Florida State. Well, how crazy is that, man? Of course we were trying to win, but we wanted that ring on our finger also, and we didn't get a ring for beating Florida State. We got a ring for winning the SEC.
Absolutely. You had to go to that and get that Sugar Bowl ring, right?
Exactly. 5 of them, matter of fact.
For North Carolina, they are now in limbo. We'll talk about the Tar Heels and their head coaching search coming up later in today's show. But let's move on now to talk about those 9-win Blue Devils of Duke University. Man, it came right down to the last play of the game. And Malik Murphy, the transfer from Texas, he delivers on a big play. Touchdown, 44 yards out. And the Blue Devils beat Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, 23-17. What does 9 wins mean for Duke University?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. We were there with Coach Cutcliffe. I was there with Coach Cutcliffe for a lot of years. We had one 10-win season. It's hard to win in college football. Just look, and I'm not trying to get off subject here right now. Just look at what's going on in the Southeastern Conference right now. I mean, there were weeks ago they were talking about having 5 teams in a 12-team playoff. Well, hell, they're going to be lucky to get 3 right now, and probably 2. So there is so much turmoil going on, and the transfer portal has changed things so much, and it's hard to win now. But the Blue Devils and Manny Diaz and their defensive staff and their staff in general have done a fantastic job each and every week. They're prepared. They get pressure on the quarterback. They stop the running game. They force turnovers. They've done a tremendous job. Got to give them a great deal of credit.
Wake Forest now 4-8. Their season comes to a close. For Dave Clawson, what is the pathway to success for Wake Forest football?
Well, if anybody listened to Dave as he in his press conference, Dave will be the first one to admit that they're under personnel at this point in time. They need more and they need better players, and obviously in the market that we're in right now, it takes money to have those kind of players. And somebody, one of the reporters asked Dave in his post game press conference if he was going to make staff changes. And I absolutely loved his answer. And his answer was they're the same coaches that in 2021 we were the top staff in the ACC. Our offense was no worse. Their offense has been no worse than fourth since like 2018. And Brad Lambert is a heck of a defensive coach. So they're still the same coaches. Let me just say it this way: I was a better coach with better players than without really good players. And anybody that tells you anything different, they're not being honest.
Hey, there are a lot of great coaches out of work, but there aren't many great recruiters out of work. Is that axiom accurate?
I think you have to recruit them, but you got to coach them well. But you know what? I'm a much better coach coaching big, fast guys than I am slow, little guys. Okay. And when you start playing young players in today's game, just ask Mike Norvell. Ask any of these guys. Ask Dave Clawson. And Dave Clawson and Brad Lambert, those guys are really, really good coaches. When you start playing guys that are inexperienced and you put them out there against experienced, top-notch college football players, it's hard. It's hard, man. They get exposed in a hurry.
That's the Coach Jim Collins. I'm Mike Waddell. When we come back, we're going to talk about the days of our lives and the Keenan Football Center. That's the saga of Carolina's football reformation. That's coming up next, right here, all across the Old North State. This is the fifth quarter on the North Carolina Sports Network.
The Original Salt Works has become a legendary breakfast, brunch, and lunch place in Wilmington for both locals and out-of-town visitors over the last 50-plus years. Our good friend Bob Hubbard owns the place, but he's also the one cooking your food and often roaming the dining room to greet you with a smile and to make sure your visit is a great one. Bob has been running the show at this unique roadside diner for more than 20 years now, and he and his friendly, hardworking staff aim to treat you like one of their own. Try Bob's homemade omelets or special recipe grits for breakfast or his legendary cheeseburgers for lunch. The Original Salt Works, your breakfast and lunch choice on Oleander Drive in Wilmington. In sports, we talk a lot about impact players who make a positive difference. When it comes to our state's economy, the North Carolina pork industry is a true MVP. Each year, the pork industry plays an important role in supporting rural communities across our state. It contributes more than $10 billion a year to the North Carolina economy and supports more than 44,000 jobs. Learn more about their positive impact at ncpork.org. The North Carolina Pork Council, the foundational partner of the North Carolina Sports Network.
Back on the fifth quarter here on the North Carolina Sports Network, Mike Waddell along with the coach, Jim Collins. And this show is brought to you, as always, by the Original Salt Works, the best breakfast and lunch anywhere in the Wilmington area. And Jim, we had a chance to go over and visit Bob Hubbard over the early part of October. And man, did we gain some weight that morning at the Original Salt Works. It was something.
Bacon everywhere, Mike. There's no doubt about that. I think we had the entire menu that morning.
Let's talk about the drama over at the Keenan Football Center. I was in Chapel Hill for the NC State game on Saturday, was at the post-game press conference with former head coach Mack Brown. And I got to tell you, as an administrator, it was pretty tough to watch that. I was standing with Rick Steinbacher off stage right. Rick, the former Carolina linebacker and longtime athletics administrator in the Tar Heels athletics department. And it was tough watching it because obviously we all worked with Coach Brown at one point in our careers. And on Monday afternoon, he was adamant saying, I'm staying. I'm going to be here in Chapel Hill in 2025. On Monday night, he had a conversation with Bubba Cunningham as the AD was out in Hawaii with the Carolina basketball team. They did not agree on the pathway forward, and Coach Brown was dismissed shortly before he went on the air with Rick Steinbacher on his weekly radio show. And then on Tuesday morning, the news broke. I actually called you as I was in the car driving and say, hey, what'd you think about the news? And you hadn't heard it yet because it had just come out. But did it surprise you of how this matriculated? Because it's just odd to me that you can go from on one day being adamant that you're going to be the head coach to being the next day fired. And then on Saturday, and this is the part that really got me, Coach Brown sits there and says that he and Sally agreed that they needed a change in leadership, but they were just back and forth on the timing. It seems like this is really chaotic, but there probably is a simpler explanation for it all, but I'm just missing it right now. What say ye?
Mike, I'm sure there is. As Coach Brown stated, there are three people that actually know the entire story, and that's and I'll refer to it as he did, A.D. Cunningham and Board of Trustees Chairman John Pryor and Mack. They're the ones that actually know what occurred in the conversation. And from a coach's standpoint, and I'll take that position, and I'll let you handle the administrator's position. I think it's only fair that you're going to make a decision, and you've already made the decision what you're going to do. What's the difference between Monday night announcing on Tuesday and Saturday after the game or Sunday morning? There's no difference. That does not stop you, in my opinion, as an administrator from going out and starting your search for a head coach. And Mike, you can clarify this or not. I would be willing to bet they've been on their search probably since the James Madison game for what they were going to do with a head coaching position. I'm sure they're well and very, very deep into their search at this point in time. So I tend to agree with Mack. And then the idea that he would come out on Friday, 24 hours before the game, and announce that he was not going to be the coach, that's absolutely absurd. You're trying to run a football program and do it the right way and look after that group of players and guide them through their last game, the seniors, their last game in Keenan, and you're going to tell them their coach is fired on Friday. I just don't think it's right.
And it just doesn't smell accurate to me. I think there are a lot of games being played right now by former head coach Mack Brown. I think if you can connect the dots and stay with me here, back in May, there was a big dust-up with that Board of Trustees chairman, John Pryor, and another member of the trustees, Jen Halsey Evans, where they called athletics director Bubba Cunningham to the carpet, citing some irregularities or some inaccuracies in the Carolina athletics budget, and that was quickly quelled by the new chancellor, Lee Roberts of the University of North Carolina. So it seems like there have been battle lines drawn here, that you have the Board of Trustees and the chancellor on opposite sides of the spectrum. Just the fact that it was mentioned that the Board of Trustees chair, who doesn't have any real authority on the day-to-day operations of the University of North Carolina, was on a call and the chancellor was not, that's just bizarre to me. And I can tell you that I spent a lot of years in higher education. That makes no sense. In fact, that just doesn't sit well with me. It really reeks of trustees trying to meddle where they are absolutely not supposed to be. So if I'm Roberts, I have a real problem with this Board of Trustees group, but they're political appointees. They're nothing more than political hacks for the most part. And man, that's really tough to hear, but I find it hard to believe, knowing Bubba Cunningham as I do. I just don't see him saying, hey, let's roll this one out on Friday. Now, as you said, there are three people on that call, and two of them seem to be on one team, and the other one is remaining silent right now. I don't know if this story is quite done yet.
This tough situation the entire program is in right at this point in time. Freddie Kitchens is now the interim head coach, and we'll see. There's a lot of people in that building that are, guess what? They're looking for jobs right now. They're trying to find out what their next opportunity is. So the next 2 weeks, and I guess it's 4 weeks until Christmas, because this Sunday was the first day of Advent. So it's 4 weeks until Christmas. There are going to be a lot of things happen within those walls over the next 4 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, Mike, I'm going to disagree with you on that point. I don't blame Mack. I don't blame him for cleaning out his office and getting the hell out of there. They didn't want him anymore, so why should I stay? Now, he's doing the right thing tonight. He's having the senior dinner, or Sunday night he did. He's having a senior dinner with those seniors that have been there with him for 4 to 5 years. So that to me, that's pretty good. That's more than some other people would do. I'll tell you that.
Well, I will tell you that I've been to 2 bowl games with interim-like head coaches. In 2006 at the University of Cincinnati, we lost Mark D'Antonio to Michigan State, and we hired Brian Kelly. We had Pat Narduzzi, now the head coach at Pitt, as our interim head coach. We held on to him and wouldn't let him go to East Lansing, and that upset Mark D'Antonio. But we later hired, in a very quick fashion, Brian Kelly away from Central Michigan. And Brian Kelly became the answer to one of my favorite trivia questions: who is the only head coach in Division I history who has beaten the same team twice in the same season as the head coach at 2 different schools? Brian Kelly had been the head coach of the Chippewas of Central Michigan. They beat Western Michigan. Coach Bill Cubitt in the regular season. Then he came to the University of Cincinnati, and in just a few weeks, I think it was like 2.5 weeks, and 5 GAs and I think 2 assistant coaches went up and beat Western Michigan in the International Bowl, a game that was played at Rogers Center, used to be known as Sky Dome in Toronto, and one of the most bizarre bowl games of all time. And then when I was at the University of Cincinnati, we were 12-0. And going to the Sugar Bowl to play the University of Florida, and Brian Kelly resigned. The back end of this story, he resigned to become the head coach at Notre Dame, and we took a guy named Jeff Quinn, who was our offensive coordinator, and made him the interim head coach. He was then named 3 days after we named him the interim. Jeff Quinn was named as the new head coach at the University of Buffalo. So we had half of our staff, the offensive staff, that was going to the University of Buffalo after the game. And the other half of the staff was going with Brian Kelly, the defensive staff under coordinator Bob Diaco. They were going to South Bend with the Fighting Irish. And man, to say that was a dysfunctional trip to New Orleans would be the understatement. We got crushed in the game. We did not deserve to, we did not play well on any measurable metric. And the chaos didn't just get reserved to Cincinnati, because during that time frame, Urban Meyer resigned, or said he was going to resign, and then he came back. I mean, it was chaos all around. So, hey, I don't think you can fault them any way, shape, or form, Coach Brown, for the decision that he made. One thing I think you and I both would agree on that we don't need to see any more of is planting of flags on the field after a game. And you saw on Saturday this past weekend fights in Michigan, Ohio State, NC State, North Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, Auburn and Alabama, Notre Dame and Southern Cal, Arizona State and Arizona, Florida and Florida State, and Texas A&M.
We're going to have to get to a rule, in my humble opinion, again, that there's no handshake after a game. And if your team leaves your bench at the end of the game, other than the 2 head coaches going out to shake hands, and then you walk to your dressing room, and the other team walks to their dressing room, if you do anything different than that, then you're going to get fined, because that's an awful look for college football. It's not what our game is all about. It's about going out and playing your ass off and fighting to the end of the game. And then at the end of the game, we shake hands and we say, "Great job. We're going to get you next year." It's not about a fight in the middle of the field, and it's not about embarrassing somebody. Hell, you already embarrassed them. You beat their ass. What else do you need to do? And you're talking to a guy that's been in 2 of those. I was in 2 of those against Florida State, except ours were in pregame. And one of them, the first one was more out of control than the second one. But the first one that we were in against them at Doak Campbell Stadium was quite ugly. We had 2 players kicked out of the game, matter of fact.
One odd coincidence in the end of Larry Fedora's time at North Carolina and the end of Mack 2.0 with the Tar Heels is both ended in Kenan Stadium against NC State, and both ended with a fight. When you talk about these fights, though, especially with last year's national champion, the Michigan Wolverines, they were involved in a pretty ugly scenario a year ago against their in-state rival, Michigan State. And now it's gone on to the game against Ohio State, and doing that in Columbus. It just seems like more and more it becomes acceptable that people don't have the outrage that you and I have at this type of behavior. Does that concern you?
Sure, it concerns me. It's I think it's and I'm not smart enough to have the correct word, but to me it's part of what's wrong with our country right now, and that things like that are acceptable. That's not what athletics and college sports are all about. It's not about fighting in the middle of the field after a game. It's not about you've already embarrassed the opponent. I said that earlier. You beat their ass. So act like you've been there before. Don't act like that you've never won a game, and especially a big game at that point in time. So I think we've got a real issue. And I just saw earlier that both Michigan and Ohio State have been fined $100,000. And I think $100,000 for what happened there is probably too light. And then I listened to a Michigan player do an interview that talking about that Ohio State was in the wrong because they started a fight when somebody tried to plant a flag in the middle of their field. And it's pretty tough to plant one on field turf. Last I checked, I don't believe it's going to stand up on field turf, but that I guess it's the image of it, and that's where the Michigan player is wrong. You guys started it, and then you go to Florida State. Guess who took the flag up? The head football coach, Mike Norvell, was involved in it. So we've got some issues right now that need to be solved without a doubt.
That is the coach, Jim Collins. I am Mike Waddell. When we come back, we'll talk with Eric Lusk, editor-in-chief of North Carolina footballnews.com. We'll learn about Lenoir-Rhyne's D2 playoffs, and also about a lot of people from the FCS level going into the transfer portal. That comes up next right here all across the Bold North State on the Fifth Quarter and the North Carolina Sports Network.
This segment brought to you by our great friends at Atlantic Tire and Service, where DG and his family take all of their vehicles for routine maintenance, service needs, and a world-class selection of new tires. Atlantic Tire and Service, your one-stop tire and auto repair provider with highly trained technicians and a sales and support staff that are second to none. They've grown to 6 Triangle area locations, 2 in Raleigh, 2 in Cary, 1 in Durham, and 1 in Wake Forest. You can learn more online at AtlanticTireOnline.com.
The Lawson Insurance Group in Raleigh is a family-owned business led by 3 actual brothers who happen to be huge sports fans: Ken Lawson, Miller Lawson, and Michael Lawson. I know these guys, I trust these guys, and I send these guys my own insurance business and that of my family. The next time you have insurance needs, I hope you'll do the same. The Lawson Insurance Group is known for its commitment to community and its dedication to ensuring that North Carolinians and their businesses are prepared for life's inevitable challenges, with the reminder that as a high street insurance partner, Lawson Insurance Group offers local expertise and support that, combined with High Street's extensive national resources, means more choice and support for you as their client. To learn more, search Lawson Insurance Group online. The Lawson Insurance website will be the first link that pops up.
Back again for our favorite segment here on the Fifth Quarter each and every week on the North Carolina Sports Network. I am Mike Waddell. He is the coach, Jim Collins. And joining us as always is the editor-in-chief of North Carolina footballnews.com, the one, the only, Eric Lusk. And Eric, the small college football scene is starting to slow down a bit here in
Yes.
Old North State, and unfortunately, it was the end of the road for the Mountain Bears of Lenoir-Rhyne College over the weekend, just like their South Atlantic Conference foe Wingate the previous week. LR ran into a buzzsaw from the Commonwealth.
Yeah, those are my exact words I was going to use. That is, Virginia Union has gotten hot at the right time. They've took two really good defenses to task. Wingate last week, Lenoir-Rhyne this past Saturday. Over 500 yards of offense, 44 points on Lenoir-Rhyne, and they held Lenoir-Rhyne to 12, which, Lenoir-Rhyne puts up some points, average close to 30 a game. So, yeah, this is a team that's putting it all together. Two running backs had the 100-yard mark. Jada Byers had about 185. Curtis Allen had about 120. Both scored 2 touchdowns. They go on. They play Valdosta State for the right to go to the Final Four. So, unfortunately, our Division II season is over. Pretty much everything is over, beyond FBS, other than one junior college team is all we got left from the non-Division I ranks right now.
Well, let's talk about Lewisburg. They're in the junior college version of Division III. That means non-scholarship.
Right.
And right now, the Hurricanes, they are on the road. They're going up to face the College of DuPage.
Yes, right. They Lewisburg will have their hands full. I mean, to get there, it's a great step for them. It's based on rankings, a little bit like FBS. You're trying to figure out where you're ranked. Lewisburg needed to finish one or two in the rankings to get invited to this championship game. They finished number 2, held on at the end. They'll play a College of DuPage. I believe they've won the last 2 of the junior college Division III championships. Pretty much running roughshod over most of the teams they played so far. So it'll be a challenge. But again, just to get that exposure, anytime you can get into a championship setting, it's a great feeling. So hats off to Lewisburg College. You're putting our state on the map for football, which is always a good thing.
The coaching carousel will keep spinning over the next month as we head even into the new year of 2025. But already here in the Old North State, we have Davidson now looking for a head coach as their head man, Scott Abel, has moved on to Rice University. And Jimmy, Rice is one of the smallest Division I schools along with Wake Forest. Davidson's a small school, and Abel is a guy that runs that triple option offense. Is that something that can be successful here in 2025?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. Obviously, it's been successful at Davidson, and it's successful in the academies. And when you start talking about FBS levels, so yeah, there's no doubt. You just gotta be in the right place. There are a lot of schools out there that are looking for coaches, but that style is just not a fit, because fans are not in favor of it and don't like watching it. Can he be successful at Rice? The answer is yes, he certainly can, because he can pick the right type player for what he wants to do. And if I'm not mistaken, Eric, you can comment on this better than I can.
Okay.
I think they average almost 400 yards a game rushing. So yes, the answer is they can be successful in that style. And he's been in an academic school, and obviously Rice is an academic school. I know someone that interviewed for the Rice job, and they were talking about 1,400 SAT scores to get players in there. So that's quite a challenge for you at that point in time. So, but I do think he has a chance based on what he does offensively.
I know the director of athletics at Rice, Tommy McClellan. He has an FBS background. 1,400? I mean, unless that's like a ×2 or there's some type of multiplier in there.
Right.
How many times over the years, even at Duke, where you spent a lot of time on the staff, did you have a 1,400 guy playing football for you for the Blue Devils?
Well, I will say rarely. But believe it or not, some of the best players I had there that had great success were 1,400 guys. A couple of linebackers. David Helton was the leading tackler in the ACC for 2 straight years, and Kelby Brown, who is a doctor now. They were both 1,400 kids, and really, really smart football players and tough physical guys. So it's possible, but I don't know if there's enough out there to to compete at a very high level, unless you're going to do something that offensively, which he does, that you see one time a year, and the preparation for it is not easy. The physicality of it is hard to defend. And again, you don't see it very often. When we were at Duke, we had to play both Navy and Army at that point in time, and we committed at least 2 days of preseason camp to game planning the triple option. And then we would use our Sundays before we played those games. We would take a team period on Sunday and run 10 or 12 plays, or their top plays, even leading up weeks before that game, because it's a conditioning type thing. And by conditioning, I don't mean body conditioning, I mean mental conditioning, to be able to handle the assignment responsibility, taking the dive, taking the quarterback, taking the pitch, and doing the things that you have to do to defend against that offense.
Back in the year 2000, I started on staff at the United States Military Academy at West Point, and we had a brand new head football coach. In fact, we started the same week, and I lived with the football staff for 2 months in temporary housing. I'm talking, of course, about the former head of the AFCA, Todd Berry. He came from Illinois State, and he played a version of the triple option that reverted into a short passing game. Now, it wasn't that successful at West Point, but this type of offense does seem to work in a lot of places where you have undersized and really smart people. Could that ever work at the ACC level, even at the same level today where Paul Johnson coached it for the Yellow Jackets back once upon a time, Jimmy?
I'm not going to say it would not work, but I think the problem that you run into in today's game, and I think Paul ran into it somewhat at Georgia Tech, is that there's so much push to be pro football players at this point in time that to recruit a top-notch player to play in that offense, it can have a high degree of difficulty. And then the other thing that happens is there's so much cut blocking, and the cut blocking is limited now with the rules, and the rules have changed a little bit, and that's why you've seen that style of offense change a little bit also, because within the tackle box, some of the cutting has been eliminated, and the cutting by the backs on the edge and all has been eliminated also. And I may be over speaking what the fans out there would acknowledge and see what's going on. So to say that it couldn't be successful would be false, but you've got to recruit a different style player, and the top-notch players they resist playing in that, and the defensive players resist practicing against it because they don't think it prepares them to play against other people.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the transfer portal, and Eric, how that is having an impact on North Carolina college football teams, especially those at the FCS level. It looks like a lot of these guys are already making their plans known, along with an NC State receiver who is probably the highest paid member of that Wolfpack program this past season, Casey Concepcion.
Yeah, it's tough. I've seen stuff come across our feed for pretty much every FCS school, and it's not just the third string, long snapper. It's like North Carolina Central, Jamari Taylor, 1,000-yard running back, freshman All-American wide receiver at Campbell. Last year as a freshman All-American, had a solid season this year. He's in the portal. Elon, several defensive players that, are contributors, a lot of tackles, they're in the portal. So, you start questioning, is it just, hey, I'm looking for a greener pasture, or is it like a sign that something maybe isn't right? I think a lot of it is just, people maybe see that little bit greener pasture. They see maybe there's a step up they can make. Elon, for example, sent some players to the and Campbell both sent some players to the FBS level this year. And so, Hajj Malik Williams, UNLV, suddenly he's a rock star around the country when the other quarterback decides to bail on his team. So I think, some of that, they see that whether or not it's the right move, for these folks, we'll find out. But yeah, there's a lot of it. And it's just, I started a tracker on our website, I can't even keep up because it's like person after person after person. Charlotte, a whole bunch of Charlotte names popped up over the weekend. So yeah, it'll be something to track. Reshuffle the deck, and we'll come back at it again. So.
Jimmy, from a coaching point of view, how tough is it to take a transfer and assimilate them into the culture of a college football program at the D1 level?
Well, I think the key is Mike and Eric, is that if they can be there in January and go through your off-season program and go through spring practice and have the entire summer to be in meetings and learn the offense, learn the defense, learn the system, but most of all get acclimated into the culture. And there's that word again. And I think you have to do a great job in the portal of selecting the people that fit what your program is all about. There's lots of good players out there, but there's also lots of turds out there too. And I'm just being blunt. And you have to be very careful to take the right type guy that fits what you're trying to do, that fits your system. I learned at one point in my short stint in the NFL, the veteran coaches in that league taught me very quickly that when you start evaluating players for free agency, that what you see is what you're going to pay for. So if you don't like who they are on video and you think you're going to change them, well, you're full of crap. You're not going to change them. They are who they are. If they won't hit water, if they fell into it, then you're not going to teach them to be a physical player before next year. Nick Saban said it best on game day, and I've probably used this before. Be careful what you do in the transfer portal, because you may be buying somebody else's crap. He didn't say crap. He used the true SHIT word. And I guess I could use that, but I'm not going to. But I just think you have to be very selective in who you pick and who fits what you want to do from an offensive, defensive system, and from who you want to be around each day. I'll be honest with you. I'm an old ball coach now. I can put up with a turd that plays really, really good, but he better play really, really good, or I'm not going to put up with an asshole. Okay, just the bottom line.
Eric, let's talk about NorthCarolinaFootballNews.com. All year long, we've had the fabulous 15, but now that is about to germinate into your all North Carolina teams over the month of December. What do we have to look forward to when we go to NorthCarolinaFootballNews.com?
Yeah, we'll do a lot of recaps. We're going to do individual, like Division III, all North Carolina team, Division II, FCS, the whole thing. And then at some point, once everybody's done, we'll wrap up the year with, kind of an all North Carolina, all levels team. Kind of treat it the same way as we would a fabulous 15, who had the most special seasons. And that's going to be tough. I may ask for y'all's insight on that. And we will have one last final fabulous 15 once everything's done. It's going to be hard because, the teams that were like riding high fell off, and there's going to be a battle for that spot. And it's like, man, could Duke slip into number one? They just keep winning. It's not always pretty. They don't, necessarily light up the stat sheet, but there's a W after most of their games. So that's kind of the point. So, yeah, exciting December. We don't stop. Football last week was probably one of my busiest weeks for content, just because of coaching changes, transfer portal, a few playoff games. So, yeah, it's college football. You guys know it's a year-round thing. So, and we're here for it.
Have a feeling the first week in December is going to be a hold my beer type of experience for you and content and the changes that are about to come up here in the state of North Carolina. Jim, before we let you go tonight, I do want to ask you the state of football in North Carolina. You have the biggest two programs, NC State and North Carolina, both at 6-6. Wake Forest with a losing record at 4-8. And Duke rolling in right now at 9-3, by far and away, as Eric just alluded to, the top team in the state of North Carolina. East Carolina going bowling. Appalachian State and Charlotte just on the outside of the postseason. What is the state of football here in North Carolina?
Well, obviously we're pretty average right now. I don't think we have anybody that's going to compete on a national level at this point in time, whether it be in the in a group of five or whether it be in the Power Four or at Division One, Division Two level, Division Three level. We need to find a way to play better at all levels. I give Manny Diaz and the Duke staff a great deal of credit for going 9-3 with a team that they had a lot of holes when they came in. They did a great job plugging them, and they did a wonderful job of coaching a defense that is in the top 5 in the country in sacks and top 5 in the country in tackles for losses, and have created a lot of plays. But when you go down otherwise, you're looking at a lot of mediocrity, and unfortunately, we're coming into an era at this point in time where we're going to get to revenue sharing, and we're going to see what revenue sharing does with creating players starting this Wednesday, Eric, with signing day coming up. We'll see what the revenue sharings and the commitments are going to do there, and obviously the NIL. And if you listen to this past weekend, if you listen to Dave Clawson's post-game press conference, he plainly states it. I love Dave Clawson, what he says, and he tells it like it is, and it's a struggle right now because you're going against people with a lot of bigger budgets, and that's what's going to be interesting. And I'm rambling right now. That's what's going to be interesting in the North Carolina selection process. Where are they going to go with this process? This hire, in my humble opinion, this hire is going to be whether they're going to try to play with the big guys on the field, or whether they're going to continue a level of, and I hate to use this word, but a level of mediocrity. The guy they just let go at the University of North Carolina, holds some of the best records that they've had since the 1980 championship, and he did just as well as anybody else, if not better. 6 straight bowl games. I mean, he's no different than anybody else. So if they're gonna dismiss him, they better take a look and see where they're going and see if they can win at a much higher level than they are right now. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's the coach, Jim Collins. He's Eric Lusk, and I'm Mike Waddell. And every week this fall, we've been here on the 5th quarter, recapping the weekend that was college football here in the Old North State. We're brought to you, as always, by the original Saltworks in Wilmington, and also by the North Carolina Port Council, representing over 44,000 North Carolinians and $10.4 billion of economic impact. For the guys, I'm Mike Waddell. We'll see you coming up next week for another edition of the 5th quarter.